conducted a series of coordinated and premeditated
Good evening. Y'all better be preparing. This world is headed for war. When they say peace and prosperity, sudden destruction comes upon them unawares.
Residential areas. Among the key targets was the Natanz nuclear facility, a safeguarded site under the full monitoring of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Madam President, we strongly and unequivocally condemn the barbaric and criminal attack. A series of targeted assassinations were against senior military officials, nuclear scientists, and innocent civilians. So far, 78 people, including senior military officials, have been martyred and over 320 others injured. The overwhelming majority of them civilians, including women and children. Earlier today, Israel continued its act of aggression against Iran, once again targeting multiple civilian and military sites across several Iranian cities. These deliberate and systematic killings were not only illegal, but inhuman, a chilling display of calculated aggression. These atrocities constitute...
These are just the beginnings. Y'all better prepare for what comes next.
Madam President, the inaction of the United Nations, the Security Council, and the IAEA, despite repeated and documented warning by Islamic Republic of Iran regarding Israeli threats against its nuclear sites, have seriously...
Good evening, Helen White. How you doing? Great to see you, darling.
Their silence in the face of repeated Israeli provocations...
Israel is under attack.
The rogue regime escalates its violation and cross every red line. Let us be clear.
Iran has retaliated.
The nuclear facilities defied not only the fundamental principles of international law, but also basic common conscience. Any damage...
Good evening, Alan Davis. How you doing, brother? Now, I didn't know anything about this stuff that was going on in Israel and Iran until somebody told me about it.
Only a regime devoid of humanity.
When I did a live stream this morning was the first I heard about it. My brother was just telling me earlier that Iran has started bombing Israel. So Iran has started retaliatory strikes.
Creation of nuclear weapons, the Geneva Convention, and multiple Security Council and IAEA General Conference resolutions, all of which prohibit attacks or threats.
Iran launches ballistic missiles at Israel after attack on Iran's nuclear program. Now, see, Iran has been trying for forever to make a nuclear weapon, which is the worst thing that could happen to this whole earth if Iran gets their hands on a nuclear weapon.
The permanent mission of Iraq today formally protested and condemned this violation of its territorial integrity in a letter to the Security Council and the Secretary General.
Alan Davis, the Bible warns when you see Israel coming under attack that you better be prepared.
They are complicit by aiding and enabling this crime, by they share full responsibility for the consequences.
Now, this is not just local news, this is international news, but it could have a ripple effect that affects the whole earth, not just Israel and Iran. Iran is making statements like the United States is responsible. Now, Israel is a sovereign nation.
Have made the Middle East a cauldron of chronic instability since its creation. It is long overdue for the international community to act. This regime must be disarmed of all weapons.
International community, you heard him say. See, this is them pushing for the new world order, the international community.
On one country, this is a direct assault on the international order.
International order.
The UN system, the global nuclear non-proliferation regime, as well as the authority of the IAEA. Israel's leadership, including its criminal prime minister, has shamelessly and publicly claimed responsibility for these heinous acts.
The Islamic Republic of Iran. Now that is in New York City where they're having that meeting. The top right corner says Israel under attack, and the bottom right says Israel braces for more strikes.
This leaves no room for denial. Furthermore, the aggression was intentional, coordinated, and fully backed by a permanent member of this council, the United States. The United States complicity in this
emergency UN Security Council meeting, the United Nations Security Council meeting. Now they meet in New York City, in the United States of America.
As of last night, including the deliberate transfer of arms, we will not forget that our people lost their lives as a result of the Israeli attacks with American weapons.
Now, Israel's attack killed some high-ranking Iranians within their government who had to do with their nuclear program.
Aggressive behavior by the Israeli regime, a regime that acts with impunity because it is shielded by powerful allies.
Hello, Newfound Life Today. How you doing today?
Must act now.
But I didn't even really know that this was going on right now until someone said something about it this morning. I think it was Michael Kunkel, the truth spitter. I didn't hear anything about it because I don't have cable TV. All I have is the internet. So I watch stuff either on YouTube or Roku, Pluto. Now this is off Roku Live. This is the Fox News channel.
The Council enforced that resolution and held Israel accountable at that time. This regime would not have been emboldened to continue this unlawful behavior with impunity. The current aggression is a direct consequence of decades of inaction and double standards. Madam President, the Islamic Republic of
Israel has a lot of enemies.
As enshrined in Article 51 of
now, the United States has always stood with Israel.
Proportionately to these acts of aggression at a time, in a place, and by means of its choosing. This is not a threat. This is the natural, legal, and necessary consequence of an unprovoked military attack. Iran's response will be firm, lawful, and essential to restore deterrence, defend our sovereignty.
How can some country that hates Israel so much sit here and talk about lawful?
Impunity.
Iran has helped all them different groups that is fighting against Israel, that attacks Israel. They actually helped out on the attack in Israel when all them Israelis were kidnapped.
To hold the Israeli regime accountable and to prevent.
Good afternoon, Lorenzo Herrera. How you doing, brother? Michael Kunkel, the truth spitter. How you doing, brother? We're watching on Fox News about what's going on in Israel. They were attacked.
Israel attacked Iran. Israel violated international.
Iran retaliated against Israel's strikes on Iran and their nuclear program.
Act now and stop this act of aggression immediately. Silence his complicity in this crime. I thank you.
Thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Madam President, first, I would like to thank USG DeCarlo and Director General Grossi. Madam President, Israel has acted to prevent its destruction, and the world now stands at a crossroad between denial and clarity. This is not only a defining moment for Israel, it is a defining moment for the global security order and for the credibility of the international system.
Well, I'm doing pretty good, Lorenzo. I was just sitting here checking out the Roku Live TV, and this is live on Fox. Israel is under attack. Iran retaliated for Israel's airstrikes on Iran's nuclear program.
Dozens are injured, 2 of them in a critical condition, and we are still following the news. Now take a moment and imagine if today that radical regime had nuclear warheads for those missiles. Last night, the State of Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a preemptive military operation carried out with precision.
A preemptive military strike.
At our disposal. The mission was very clear: dismantle Iran's nuclear program, eliminate the architects of its terror and aggression, and neutralize the regime's ability to follow through on its repeated public promise to destroy the state of Israel.
Now, Iran has always said that Israel is not a nation, and they believe in the total destruction of Israel.
Less than a month ago, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei called a quote, cancerous tumor that must be eradicated. IRGC commanders have vowed to, quote, open the gates of hell on Israel. This is a picture of the main square in Tehran. The streets of Tehran display a countdown clock. At the time of the photo, you can see it in Arabic, it was at 8,411 days. It is tracking the regime's planned timeline for Israel's destruction, paid by the government, putting it in the main.
Hello, when Larry sings. How you doing, brother?
These threats have been made on a near daily basis.
Iran and other countries has been threatening Israel for forever. You know, they can't stand the fact that Israel is a sovereign nation.
These were just words. That genocidal slogans and threats to erase us could be ignored or rationalized. But Israel...
When Iran or other countries talks about wiping Israel off the earth,
we know their ideology.
The news media doesn't cover it.
Enriches uranium to near weapons grade and openly declares its intent to destroy us.
And I only heard about this morning.
We take them as the word.
That Israel had attacked Iran last night.
Before it is too late. Colleagues, Israel did not act recklessly. We waited. We waited while Iran enriched uranium to 60%, a level with no civilian.
Well, I don't believe that it is fake news, Larry.
Within days of a nuclear breakout.
Good afternoon, Jug. How you doing?
While the IAEA reported that Iran had obstructed inspectors, destroyed monitoring equipment, and accelerated its covert special development program. We waited while Iran developed trigger mechanisms, detonation systems, and plans for warheads. We waited while its leadership actively recruited more nuclear scientists. We waited while Iran constructed a ballistic missile industry so large and sophisticated, and we can expose it now, that it was intended to challenge even the US and Russia in ballistic missile capabilities.
Yep, that is the thing about it. If Iran gets their hands on nuclear weapons,
We gave the international community
it would
time
cause an
to
international
negotiations
war.
stretched on.
It could end up
Iran made forced concessions or refused
being the
fundamental
start of the
conditions.
Third World War.
All the while, Iran continued to build toward the unthinkable. Last night,
MSRK Smith, yes, it does affect us.
our operation targeted 3 layers.
Israel is God's chosen people, the creator.
Of Iran's military and nuclear command. This
The
includes
Bible says to watch when you see Israel coming under attack, but to take warning.
Terror organization, and Jolam Ali Rashid, commander of emergency command. These men directed Iran's conventional military forces and terror forces. They coordinated the terror network that has plagued our region for decades. Think how many meetings you had here about the proxies of Iran in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza. Second, we struck Iran's military infrastructure.
Good evening, Gary the Snail. Where's SpongeBob?
Israeli Air Force fighter jets, guided by precise intelligence, completed a series of strikes against the Iranian regime's missile capabilities.
Well, Mr. Smith, the Bible says that when you hear them say peace and prosperity, that sudden destruction cometh upon them.
Iran launched wave after wave of ballistic missiles at our cities. They deliberately targeted civilians. The destruction of these missile systems.
Oh, EagleNick is not drinking any beers. I didn't even know this was going on. You got to realize this stuff happening in the Middle East can affect the whole earth, not just not in their countries, but it can affect the whole world.
We will not relent.
Anything happening like this can directly affect all currencies.
Third, we struck the core of the nuclear program, the underground enrichment facilities at Natanz. This facility was operating at a military-grade capacity. Intelligence confirmed that within days,
yes, sir. When Larry sings, the Bible says that the Lord will bless those who bless Israel, and he will curse those who curse Israel.
This operation was carried out because the alternative was unthinkable. How long did the world expect us to wait? How long? Let's think about it. Until they assembled the bomb? Until they mounted it on a Shahab missile? Until it was en route to Tel Aviv?
Well, I hate to tell you, that is not what the Bible says. It will eventually come down to where every nation will attack Israel, and the Lord God, the Creator himself, will step in and save Israel. Israel will not even have to defend itself.
What Iran's proxy Hamas was capable of. And then in Gaza, they did it with Kalashnikovs, with grenades. They butchered families, they burned children alive, they mutilated women. Imagine what the head of the snake would do with a nuclear warhead.
That is not explorers, that's explorers. I know explorers.
Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas for a future assault on Israel. this one would be far more sophisticated than October 7. It envisioned mass missile launches, first from Iran, then from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, followed by coordinated.
The Bible says that when you see Israel coming under attack, that you should be aware.
Operational.
Be prepared for what is to come next. Don't be hid. Don't bury your head in the sand thinking that it won't affect us.
You have passed resolutions, called for restraint, demanded ceasefire.
Even though it starts out between Israel and Iran, there are very many nations that hate Israel, and I'm sure they will be glad to join in the attack. Now, Iran was the ones who was providing Hamas with their weapons that they used against Israel when they invaded Israel and kidnapped all them Israelis.
We acted so that Iranian missiles will not carry radioactive payloads into civilian neighborhoods. We acted because history has taught us that silence is complicity and hesitation is fatal. We acted because 80 years
now,
ago,
I stand with Israel. I stand with God's chosen people.
Never again. That promise applies to a nuclear holocaust as well. This was an act of national preservation. It was one we undertook alone.
Israel did what it did, Abdullah, to keep Iran from creating a nuclear arsenal.
Not for permission, but for recognition. Recognition that Israel did what the world should have done. Recognition that the Iranian regime violated every obligation they ever undertook. Recognition that Israel had the undeniable right and duty to defend its people from extermination. We urge the Council to condemn Iran's nuclear violations. We urge the Council to finally acknowledge the existential threat Iran poses to the world. We urge the Council to join us in our commitment to prevent their genocidal dreams from becoming a reality. But we also expect something even more basic: moral clarity. Stop equating aggressors with defenders. Stop treating a genocidal regime and a democracy under siege as two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, but it is how you interpret the word. The Holy Bible is not just a book, it is God's word.
The Americas would have been against the international order. We acted to prevent a threat that would endanger not only Israel, but the entire world. We will not sit quietly.
Well, Abdullah, let me say this. Israel does have the right to defend themselves. Israel is a sovereign nation, even though Iran, Egypt, and all of the Middle East opposes Israel.
I thank the representative of Israel for his statement, and I give the floor now to the representative of Iraq.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for responding to our request and convening this session. I'd like to thank the USG and the Director General of the IEA for their briefings. Madam President, Iraq expresses its deep concern and condemnation of the dangerous military aggression committed by the Israeli entity against the territories of the Islamic Republic of Iran, including their blatant violation of Iraq's sovereignty and the inviolability of its airspace.
Now you hear that? They saying
breach of the provisions.
They're against Israel attacking Iran, but they're all for
the Republic.
They're all for Iran attacking Israel.
All right, as you see there, we're just listening into some of these comments there from the UN Security Council. They had an emergency meeting. This after all we've seen there in the Middle East in the last few hours. And again, we're still continuing to showcase some of that video footage on your screen as well. We have live looks there in Tel Aviv as well as in Jerusalem, as Israel is now responding to some of those attacks that have also come there. So we do know, if you're just now getting caught up here on Live Now from Fox, Iranian missiles did strike Israel in retaliation for deadly Israeli attacks that happened yesterday on its military leaders. We're going to showcase some of this video footage that we have of the aftermath now coming out of the Middle East. We do know that the wail of air raid sirens and the rumble of explosions could be heard all throughout Israel as well on Friday, as many of the Iranian rockets hit Tel Aviv.
Well, I'm here to tell you that the Creator is not going to allow man to destroy the earth with a nuclear weapon.
People have been wounded, according to the Associated Press. But just hours earlier, we do know that Israel also launched a wave of strikes across Iran that targeted its nuclear program and military sites. So we do want to continue on with our coverage.
Now, this is something that doesn't just affect Israel and Iran, but it can affect the whole earth.
As we're diving into all of these details,
this could really help them usher in the new world order, one world religion, one world government.
To help us break down the very latest, I now want to bring into the conversation with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, Jonathan Syed. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let's start with the very basics. This has been a very interesting few hours since these attacks first began yesterday, Friday morning, technically there in Israel, as Israel launched a targeted attack on Iran. But this morning, we've seen response from Iran targeting back to Israel. As you're watching some of this, what is your first response?
Hello to everyone new on the live stream. Please be sure to subscribe and check out my YouTube channel.
Given that the military leadership has
but this here is something that's not just local. This could affect the whole earth.
The anticipation was that Iran would have to recalibrate the strategy, but they immediately...
Now, my content on my YouTube channel is local here in Dalton, Georgia.
Defense Minister reference, which is Iran's attacking civilians across Israel.
But we are talking about something here that can affect the whole earth, not just where you live or where I live. It's starting out with Israel and Iran, but I can guarantee you that it will escalate to more countries joining Iran to fight Israel.
And so as we're talking about those attacks, and we got
now they have been trying to destroy Israel ever since Israel became a sovereign nation recognized by the United States of America.
Israel has categorized these attacks as being very targeted on military leaders and nuclear sites, but Iran is now saying that there were also civilian casualties.
Well, the regime in Tehran will probably try its best to play the victim as much as possible. But what we've seen so far was targeted strikes against various branches of the Iranian armed forces, whether it's the IRGC.
That would be a big mistake, NC, if Iran attacks the U.S. military.
From the regime in Tehran. So when we look at the details, when we look at the information and the photos that
Iran is already accusing the United States of knowing about and helping them plan this attack.
One thing to remember about Tehran,
they are accusing the United States of America as knowing about and helping, aiding and abetting Israel on their attack on Iran.
So because of that, it is very, very unlikely.
But that is coming from a country that hates the United States of America.
Will be the main leverage the West and Israel have against the regime. So going against them would be a very bad strategy, and I doubt Israel is pursuing that.
Sovereign nation means they are an independent nation, just like the United States of America.
A senior U.S. official told Fox News in a statement.
They have their own government.
Citizens and other American actors.
They are not ruled or controlled by any other country.
Let's bring in the U.S. element of it all. Of course, this is some powerful statements there with the U.S. now saying that they're going to be helping out Israel as soon as these counterattacks are coming there in the region. Was this expected?
Nanny, they say it all the time. They're over there got posters burning American flags. They call Americans infidels.
And America, but also our allies in the region, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Jordan have always helped Israel to intercept Iranian missiles. And I think recently the French president also...
Well, the U.S. currency is called the petrodollar because all countries has to buy their oil and petroleum products with the United States currency.
The Iranian threat is not just unique to either Israel or the Iranian people. It is something that is shared. And this, every time there's an escalation, is an opportunity for further cooperation between, again, not Israel and America, but perhaps Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and other Persian Gulf allies.
And so also I want to talk about the fact that there was supposed to be a meeting. It was going to be on Sunday, held in Oman, to talk about Iran's growing nuclear threat.
Well, that is the thing about being a sovereign nation. They did not have to have permission from any other country to defend themselves. It was a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities.
Against further diplomatically engaging the regime in Tehran. But as time has gone on, they've vowed to de-escalate a little bit more, and they tried to remain in the sidelines when it comes to any form of direct confrontation between either Washington and Iran or Jerusalem and Iran. But what you mentioned, a very key point, which was the negotiations probably not getting pursued no longer. But the reason behind that is because they were practically always at a gridlock. Washington and Tehran never managed to navigate the issue of enrichment. Washington kept pursuing full dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program, and the regime in Tehran did not back down. So there was no fruitful...
well, Weedy, they hide their nuclear programs in places like that in the hopes that they will not be bombed. They hide their nuclear programs with the civilians. That just goes to show that they do not care about their own people, that they try to be deceptive and hide what they are doing. Iran does not ever need to get their hands on any nuclear weapons.
Should be solved, quote, exclusively through political and diplomatic means, urging both sides to return to negotiation, even offering to mediate. As you're hearing those responses from the Russian President Vladimir Putin, it's been such a huge conflict that he's also dealing with outside of this, now making his comments on this situation known as well.
So the key term when it comes to thinking about the relationship between Moscow and Tehran would be the weapons trade. So Moscow has long relied...
Yeah, they keep their headquarters, they hide among the civilians so they can say, oh, they're bombing innocent civilians. But they are not bombing the civilians, they're bombing their nuclear program.
And the missile manufacturing facilities get targeted, which means...
Good evening, Georgia regulator.
Moscow does have good relationships with Jerusalem, and what we've seen previously when Israelis were targeting Iranian...
I'm doing pretty good, Georgia regulator. How you doing, Brett?
I refrain from chiming in and preventing Israel from continuing to do that. So the way to assess and perhaps categorize the Tehran-Moscow relationship, that is, it's more of a perhaps strategic partnership in very limited capacity.
Hello, Ed.
Alliance, like what we see between Washington and Jerusalem.
That distinction is going to be important in the days and weeks
ahead. Could you type out in the chat what Revelation 3:9 says, please?
Earlier today, this was put out by the IDF, showcasing some of those missile attacks as it happened in the skies. It seems like this was captured by some cell phone video there in the region. But let's talk about a few things as it comes to the defense system that Israel currently has in place. The Iron Dome is known all over the world for its capabilities. but as well, what type of missiles? Do we know exactly what Iran was sending as it was putting on this attack?
The IDF, the Israel Defense Forces.
Aircraft systems, or anti-defense systems. Primarily, we, of course, as you mentioned, we discussed the Iron Dome, which is oftentimes for short-range missiles, oftentimes launched either from Gaza or from Lebanon, of course.
Brother, I stand with the Creator, and the Creator stands with Israel.
Or depending on whether they're going to be cruise missiles or not, there were two different waves of them.
The Bible says that all nations will rise up against Israel. All of her enemies will rise up against Israel with a massive effort to destroy Israel, to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And that the Creator will step in personally.
If they appear in large quantities. And what we've seen so far is that it's not the largest attack Iran has waged against.
Good evening, Rocky. How you doing there, cousin? Been a long time. I miss you. I hope you're doing all right. Be glad when you get back into Dalton.
Key members there in Iran were killed in those targeted attacks. What is happening next there internally within Iran, and how is Israel going to look to respond to that going forward?
It specifically comes down to the Islamic Republic's supreme leader, Khamenei himself, because effectively he's the only main senior person who still remains there, and that is.
Oh, you're home. Well, that's good, brother. I'm glad you finally got home. I missed you.
People that were assassinated by Israel, these are veterans.
But we are covering what's going on between Israel and Iran right now.
Diminishes
Israel
military capabilities and specifically strategy. That's one angle. From another perspective, there would be faction infighting.
Israel destroyed a bunch of Iran's nuclear program,
so we're going to see a bit more friction there.
and Iran doesn't like it.
The supreme leader himself is very old, and there's no succession plan for him to be replaced. And that's going to be another challenge now with everybody gone for the Islamic Republic to really narrow down their survival strategy as the years go on.
And so we've been continuing to watch this as it's happening, replaying some of that video ongoing. I have to ask you before I let you go, Jonathan, do we believe that this is going to continue on into the overnight hours tonight? Should we be on the lookout for any of those continued attacks?
I'm just trying to make everybody know to be aware, be ready for what is coming next. Now, the Bible has warned against this for over 2,000 years, that Israel's enemies hate Israel and will do everything they can to try to destroy Israel as a nation.
And quote unquote finish the job, depending what that would mean for in the Israeli perspective against the Islamic Republic.
And then again, we're going to continue to watch as these updates go on. Also, before I let you go, just add one more question for you.
I do not have Medicaid, brother. I do not receive any kind of government benefits. I do not get food stamps.
Of a U.S.-Iran nuclear agreement. Well, we're still talking about foreign policy.
Thank you so much. I am Creator. Pinned message for that $10 $10 super. It is so greatly appreciated.
Now, with these nuclear sites allegedly destroyed, the question is, what would...
Well, I ride a bicycle, Weedy. I don't drive a car, so I don't really worry about the price of that yo-yo, as I call it. Other people call it gasoline, but I call it yo-yo because of the way the price of it bounces up and down. You know what I mean, Vern?
It is very unlikely for you also to be eliminated. So the ball has been in Tehran's court for a while. It's a matter of whether he's willing to de-escalate or whether he's going to pursue his aggressive rhetoric.
All right, and it will certainly be something that we continue to watch here on Live Now from Fox.
Weedy, it was freely gave, brother. Did you hear me ask anybody for that? I'm thankful because it was gave to me freely.
All right, wanted to make sure that we're continuing to get these updates to you as they're coming into our newsroom. Again, with the situation being so fluid there in the
Weedy, I'm not retarded, brother.
And we're going to continue to bring.
I've been taught to be thankful for everything. I've had everything and I've had nothing. I don't depend on man. I depend on my Creator.
Here on Live Now from Fox. We're going to slide away for a quick 2-minute commercial break. On the other side, though, our coverage of the region continues.
We're here. Progressive's accident response detected an accident and sent for help.
Did we beat him? Where's Superman?
We got one of them progressive commercials on now, boy. Them things is really getting weird.
We did
Yeah, I don't think car insurance is really his thing. Not with us around.
Yeah, I already called the tow truck and started your claim.
Have you not ever heard the saying, it's the thought that counts? Weedy.
That's embarrassing.
I, a creator, penned message thought enough to send what he could afford to send, and EagleNick is extremely grateful and appreciative.
Heartworm disease and 3 intestinal worms, including tapeworms, in a single monthly chewable tablet. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurological disorders. Ask for Credelio Quattro and make your dog a Quattro dog.
Keep your jobs moving with a work cart that holds your whole setup. Each tool for every job, always within reach. It holds where you need it and folds when you don't. The Crescent Sight Runner Folding Cart.
If we weren't proud of the craftsmanship and level of detail that go into every pair of Warby Parker glasses, well, we probably wouldn't show you how they're made.
Well, I don't do surveys for Amazon. I don't shop on Amazon.
And this is also great. Each pair comes standard with lenses that are scratch resistant, anti-reflective, and UV protective. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com.
Yes, sir, Rocky. I am at home.
For an art gallery. But with a sleek, gallery-worthy design, it'll sure feel like it. The Roku Pro Series. Your senses aren't better.
Yeah, Georgia regulator, the gas prices has gone down, but the thing about it is that did not fix inflation. Everything else is still inflated to a higher price than it ever was.
Let's continue on with our coverage here that we have as we're continuing to watch the aftermath of all of these attacks happening there in the Middle East. So we do know that it was early.
I buy what works best. It ain't got nothing to do with the name on it. You know what I mean, Vern?
In the aftermath, though, Iran has since retaliated, striking several cities there in Israel. So we're taking a live look there, especially there in Tel Aviv, as emergency services are currently undergoing some of those rescue operations there in the city.
Now, there was a lot of hatred toward the United States of America when President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
A number of people coming out of this residential area, some receiving medical attention. There's just some debris on the ground from the windows that shattered when this blast took place. This is one of many impact locations all across Israel. And it's an indication that while Israel's missile defense system was able to shoot down a lot of the incoming fire, much of it slipped past the Arrow system and the David Sling and the American defense systems that were being used, slamming into major population centers. The Israeli Security Cabinet is convening tonight to determine what the response will be. But again, all of this happening.
Good evening, Northwoods Press. It's great to see you, brother. Hope you're doing okay.
And also targeted the top scientists in Iran and top IRGC officials. Follow me on Instagram for more. Tune in live.
Memory foam.
As this story develops.
Israel has the right as a sovereign nation to defend itself. Now, Israel attacked Iran's nuclear program, and that is good for the whole earth. That is not just good for Israel. We do not want Iran to get their hands on nuclear weapons.
2-minute commercial break. We heard some of the after comments there from the Iranian representative at the UN Security Council. Let's listen into what he had to say.
You come at the time of our choosing.
Well, memory foam, I see you're one of them Israel haters. I stand with Israel, as does the United States of America.
Charter obligation. It must defend the rule of law. Let me conclude with this. Israel attacked Iran. Israel violated international law. Israel must be held accountable.
Palestine is not a nation. They might be called Palestinians, but there is no state of Palestine. There is a state of Israel.
Are you going to continue nuclear negotiations?
All right, so we did want to just bring this to you here on Live Now from Fox. It was just a few of those moments that happened, but you heard those reporters who were there at the UN Security Council shouting more questions at them as he walked away. So we still have a live vantage point as well after this UN Security Council meeting did come to a close. It was an emergency meeting in the aftermath of those attacks there in the Middle East.
Ancient Egypt may have talked about Palestine or Palestinians, but that still does not make it a nation.
In the meantime, as well, we heard from
that is what all the controversy is, mostly in between Israel and them other nations, is they want Palestine to have their own state.
Destruction, demolition site in the middle of Ramat Gan, a civilian area that was attacked by the Iranian regime and destroyed.
No, I do not think that Palestine is a nation. It is not a recognized nation. And I'm not mad, brother. I just talk loud sometimes because I'm deaf in one ear. No offense.
A safer place or a better than here. What can you say about the hit? Is it a big missile? It's one of the hardest.
What Palestine, brother? There is no Palestine.
Hits we've seen recently. Probably, as you know, in the last 2 years, we have many incidents of missile and rockets from all kinds of different areas, from the Hezbollah in Lebanon, from Gaza, and from now from Iran. And we are here to help them preserve and rescue all the trapped people inside, all the innocent civilians, and take them to a safer shelter, to rescue places, to hotels, everywhere we can take them. And of course, treat all the injured and help all the helpless people. There is many old people who live here and many young children, innocent, not involved in the military conflict, and all of them were hurt by the Iranian regime.
How many people are trapped? You said people are trapped. How many?
Approximately 15 people are trapped.
They're still trapped right now?
We are rescuing them as we speak.
Obama was the worst president this country had to date until we had the Biden administration, which was a continuation of the Obama administration. Joe Biden was nothing but a puppet for the Obama administration. I remember when Obama gave Iran billions of dollars in cash before he left office. Now that is them kickbacks.
All right, so we did want to bring you that update. It was great to get that insight there from the ground in Israel as well. So we did hear about those rescues that were ongoing, saying that approximately 15 people were trapped after those Iranian missiles struck some of those buildings there in Israel. So we'll continue to keep our eye on this situation, keep you updated with those numbers as they're coming into our newsroom. We're going to slide away now for a 2-minute commercial break. But
I would like to thank everyone for coming on to this live stream. Pray up and stay up.
Here with us on Live Now.
Be prepared for what is going to come next. Don't bury your head in the sand and say that it won't affect you, because believe you me, it can affect us all, no matter where we are on this earth. What's going on between Israel and Iran could very well turn into the next World War, World War III, where we really have to worry about the threat of nuclear weapons.
And timeless moments. Celebrate National Game Show Month on the Price is Right channel.
No, memory foam don't have to worry about being banned. I believe in free speech. That is one of the tenets of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is free speech. Now, there is a difference between free speech and hate speech. Roku Live Guide. You know what I mean, Burn? Oh, you mean YouTube can ban them? Well, I used to have people come on my live streams that wasn't political at all, keep talking about free Palestine, saying they support Hamas.
I would have to lift a finger. 24 hours a day on the General Hospital Channel.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Let's continue on with our coverage.
But you see, they still just calling it the Israel-Iran conflict. Now, Iran has said that it is an act of war.
Now, in the area near Tel Aviv, after some of these missile strikes there from Iran made it there to the country of Israel. So we're continuing to track this and the aftermath. And to help us continue to have better conversations and understand more in depth of what's going on there in the region, I now want to bring into the conversation Mona Yakubian. She's a senior advisor and the director.
Yeah, old Memory Foam is just trying to see if they can irritate old EagleNick. Oh, this, you know what I mean, Vern, but I've been irritated by the best.
Ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran there in the region. And of course, things got to a fever pitch yesterday, or earlier, I should say, in the day on Friday for Israel as they launched those attacks in the early morning hours on Iran. Now Iran.
How are you doing today, Andy? I am Creator. It's great to see you, brother. I hope you're still here.
Yeah,
thank you so much for that $13.58 in super chat, super thanks, super sticker.
Strikes against Iran, targeting nuclear sites, ballistic missile sites, as well as assassinating key leaders in Iran's military and paramilitary forces. This is the first of what we understand from Prime Minister Netanyahu will be a days-long campaign against Iran. And then, as anticipated, and as your photos are showing, Iran has now retaliated against Israel with a barrage of some 100 ballistic missiles. And so I think it's clear that we are at a very dangerous moment in the region where we're seeing escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. And I think the big question remains, can this conflict be contained and eventually de-escalated?
Rocky, are you still on here?
Israel and Iran, or do we see it spread to
EagleNick 24, our cousin Rocky was on here a while ago.
The aftermath as well. Let's talk about what we've seen so far. Let's break down the very latest, as you just mentioned at the top, those targeted attacks that Israel said that they launched into Iran. You mentioned the key point. Several of the leaders there in Iran were killed in those strikes. That was intentional. We're going for. So explain what that means.
I was talking to EagleNick 24.
Moving forward,
Mark Smith.
Military folks are not going to be involved moving forward.
Right. Well, it absolutely will put Iran somewhat on the back foot. Their ability to plan and undertake attacks necessarily is going to be compromised by the decapitation of this sort of senior level of military leaders. The question really also will be, does the
yes, sir, Mark Smith. I was talking to EagleNick 24.
Does this move into the realm of the political? Is Israel perhaps looking to undertake or move toward or encourage regime change in Iran? I think that's an extreme, but we're certainly hearing talk of that in various quarters.
And so, Mona, I also want to put up on the screen this is the video footage that we received there from Iran as those strikes fell. Let's talk about the civilian component as well. Specifically there in Iran, they say that some of their civilians were killed as well in these attacks. This is what happens, though, oftentimes there in the region when there are targeted attacks placed.
Well,
That's
I
exactly
didn't
right.
see
I mean,
anybody
that's
say anything
exactly
about
the
you, Mark
concern.
Smith.
You said targeted, but we often see collateral damage. We often see civilians caught up in the crossfire, and we're seeing it tonight, both in Israel and in Iran. And unfortunately, I think this is how countries can embark.
Hello, Mark
of
Smith.
Escalation, because of course, when civilians are killed, that's going to prompt perhaps an even stronger counter response. And so that's why I think we are in such a dangerous moment in the region.
And so as we're continuing to see those images come in as well from Tehran, we also want to put up a little bit more of what we're seeing right now in Israel, because they're the ones that have just been hit more recently. And we just heard as well from their paramedic services saying that 34 people have been wounded in the rocket attacks on the Tel Aviv area, including a woman who was critically injured after being trapped under rubble. So we're still seeing those emergency services on the ground, showcasing that this is really an active situation in the region.
That's exactly right. And I think the question's really ahead.
But now this is something that's been building up for a long time between Israel and Iran, because Iran has been trying to make nuclear weapons.
How much has its ballistic missile capability, for example, been eroded? I think we're going to have to wait and see. The next coming days are really going to be very critical in determining whether or not this is really an escalating, spiraling conflict, or whether there is a way to find some kind of off-ramp sooner rather than later.
Well, I have to ask you, because yesterday, in the wake of those attacks that Israel had launched on Iran, we did hear from the opposition leader there in the country of Israel as well, saying that he was standing.
What do y'all think about all them protests that's happening all over the United States about President Donald Trump's deportation plans for illegal
Well, of
immigrants?
course, it's critical when a country is now, as Israel is, under attack, when it's in the middle of a crisis. That is not the time for domestic political battles to be waged. And so it's not surprising to hear that. But of course, we know it is also a time of very fraught politics in Israel.
Mark Smith, there's no one said you couldn't say what you want to say. I said exactly the opposite. I believe in free speech, brother.
And so it's not just politics there on the domestic side in Israel, it's also international politics that are all involved in this as well. So we do know that the 6th round of talks on the nuclear program to discuss what was happening there with the nuclear program in Iran was set to happen in Oman, and we're supposed to see U.S. officials also attending that meeting. Mona, it's unclear at this time if it will still be ongoing, being that there are active attacks there in the region. But
I'm just saying, everybody needs to be prepared for what is coming next. Now, it starts out with one nation
I think that the prospects for those talks to go on as scheduled.
Fighting with Israel right now is Iran, but Iran has been helping Hamas.
Nuclear disarmament discussions taking
Iran is the ones who provided Hamas with the weapons they used to invade Israel well over a year ago, where Hamas kidnapped all them hundreds of Israelis, men, women, and children, young and old. They killed hundreds of people.
This is according to the chief. He's stressing this following the Israeli strikes on Iran, saying such attacks have serious implications for nuclear safety, security, and safeguards, as well as regional and international peace and security. It's such an interesting dynamic that we're discussing when we talk about this.
Now, Iran's made a statement it just showed saying that nuclear facilities should not be attacked, like they should be allowed to make nuclear weapons.
Right, and when those kinds of sites are attacked, there is concern, and I believe there's reporting that there may be radiation already as a result of some of those strikes. So I think that it does raise big concerns.
Mark Smith, the thing about it is, We all have free will given to us by our Creator. We all have free thinking, no matter what country we live in.
The independent Senator Bernie Sanders saying talks to address Iran's nuclear program are planned for Sunday. Then Netanyahu launched illegal strikes on Iran, killing a top ceasefire negotiator, undermining U.S. diplomatic efforts, and putting countless innocent
Hey,
lives
look
at
at
risk.
Bernie Sanders is saying bad stuff about Israel.
About this, but we've also seen rhetoric to the other side as well. When it comes to how the United States, though,
now that is the Democrats for you, especially a socialist Democrat like Bernie Sanders. He's all for socialism.
Indicated that the U.S. is not interested in getting involved offensively.
Thank you so much for coming on to the live stream. I am Creator. Pinned message. I love you, brother. You stay safe and stay blessed.
To protect, to help intercept, for example, some of the missiles being fired off by Iran. So I think we can expect a heightened U.S. military presence in the region, but it will be largely for defensive purposes, not to join.
Thank you so much for coming on to the live stream, Andy. I really and truly appreciate you, brother.
Still coming in, and that they're putting out this one from the idea of some of those missile attacks.
But that is like them socialist Democrats like Bernie Sanders to sit here and say bad stuff against Israel for trying to destroy Iran's nuclear program.
Which other countries are brought in, perhaps unintentionally.
Thank you so much, Mark Smith, for that $2 super. It is greatly appreciated.
Militia that is part of Iran's axis of resistance. Do they engage and start to?
Hello, sweet lullaby. How you doing? Israel has every right to defend itself from any nation that is trying to destroy it, which Iran is trying to do.
Does it escalate in an uncontrolled manner?
And we also have to remember
Iran has been hostile against Israel forever. Iran was the ones who funded and provided the weapons for Hamas to use against Israel.
Absolutely. You raise a really important point, Justina, which is this isn't the only conflict being waged right now in the Middle East. There is indeed ongoing conflict in Gaza. Israeli hostages still kept there, still stuck there, but also a number of...
If you don't care, Mark Smith, please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my content.
No real access to humanitarian...
I am a constitutionalist, First Amendment auditor.
Fraught and fragile place this evening.
Well, before I let you go, we were just talking about in my last conversation a bit more about what some of these other backers are doing for certain countries in the region as well. And so the question was brought up about Russia. We do know that Putin has reached out separately to both of these countries, but the relationship, can you sort of explain it between Russia and Iran and what folks can maybe expect from that?
Israel is not a terrorist state. They are a sovereign nation.
Both of them being engaged in Syria on the side of the now deposed dictator.
People better be glad that Israel is taking the offensive to try to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities before Iran
It's going to be really important to watch.
Can accomplish what they've been trying to do to create nuclear weapons, because they will not just be used against Israel. Iran hates the United States as much as it does Israel.
So there are also ties to Israel that Russia will seek to preserve. So it's going to be really important to watch and see how Russia chooses to conduct itself in these coming
years. Joe Biden just left all of that military equipment behind for ISIS to get control of.
We appreciate you so much for being with us here.
But that was all part of the plan. It wasn't an accident.
Thanks so much for having me. I think I appreciate the coverage. This is an incredibly fraught moment in the Middle East, a time of great peril, and it's really important, I think, for your audience to be tracking and watching as things unfold there. Thank you very much for having
Well,
me.
I'm sure it's not all of it still in Afghanistan, Georgia Regulator. I'm sure it's moved all over to help against the United States, Israel, and other nations.
Your rate increased every 5 years? What if $9.95 a month bought you less than $1,000 in protection? Sadly, many policies that seniors...
I know it was billions and billions of dollars worth of military equipment that the Biden administration just abandoned and left in Afghanistan.
The senior care plan guarantees your rates cannot increase. Your benefit will never decrease. There's no medical exam. And
well, I've never seen or heard of no kings.
For up to $30,000 in whole life protection. With the senior care plan, your coverage can start immediately, unlike other policies that don't give you full coverage for 2 years. By calling now, you'll lock in
But you can follow the money and see who is funding that place.
Plan from Senior Life. You have no obligation. Call now. You see the tent for the first time and you just can't believe it. Any words of advice?
The thing about it is, it's not really just about how much money's worth of military equipment that was left behind. It was the fact that that military equipment could be turned against the United States of America and her allies.
Yes, sir. Oh, my.
Facts that matter. Oh, that's a fact that matters. Talking about Beyonce and Prince. Why would those type of facts matter?
Thanks for being with us here on Live.
Everything is about...
We're continuing to cover the very latest as these attacks are ongoing there in the Middle East. Again, these
confusion
efforts there in Tel Aviv are still ongoing at this hour. We have a view live.
They cause all these different types of things to happen to distract people, to keep them from seeing what's going on around them.
Israel launched in early morning hours against Iran. So we're continuing to break down the very latest there, but some of these numbers that we have there coming out of the region, we do know that at least they're from some of those Israeli officials saying that at least 34 people have been wounded in these attacks there in the Tel Aviv area. This is according to Israel's paramedic service.
But I would like to thank everyone for coming on to the live stream. I pray that you all have a very blessed morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be.
Israel had threatened such a strike, and successive American administrators have kind of sought...
God is good all the time, because all the time God is good.
So we've been watching some of this as it's been...
EagleNick stands with Israel. I stand with the Creator.
As well as some of those moments of when it happened.
I stand for the United States Constitution and the red, white, and blue.
What that scene looked like. Missiles there heading towards Israel, streaking across the sky. We were able to bring this to you as breaking news here on Live Now from Fox. But we've been watching as well as those attacks there began in the region. So we'll continue to stay on top of it right here.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
We'll have our guests joining us. Help us make sense of
EagleNick does not have hate in his heart for anyone. I love all people the same. We were all created in the image of the Creator.
Vantage points up as well. In the meantime, though, in just a few of the minutes after that attack was launched there from Iran on Israel, those retaliatory attacks, we heard from Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's listen into some of his...
God bless you too, Newfound Life Today, Mr. Jack Wiles.
A targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions.
Millions.
Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey.
Israel actually has nuclear weapons, not just atom bombs.
Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan...
See, Iran has their weapons to defend themselves. Israel has weapons to defend themselves, rather. Iran wants nuclear weapons so that they can destroy.
We devastated Hezbollah. We hit Iranian proxies in Syria and Yemen. And when Iran directly attacked us twice last year, we struck back inside Iran itself. Yet in defending ourselves, we also defend others. We defend our Arab neighbors. They too have suffered from Iran's campaign of chaos and carnage. Our actions against Iran's proxy Hezbollah led to the establishment of a new government in Lebanon and the collapse of Assad's murderous regime in Syria. The peoples of those two countries now have a chance for a different future, a better future. So too do the brave people of Iran, and I have a message for them. Our fight is not with you. Our fight is with the brutal dictatorship that has oppressed you for 46 years. I believe that the day of your liberation is near. And when that happens, the great friendship between our two ancient peoples will flourish once again. I want to assure the civilized world, we will not let the world's most dangerous regime get the world's most dangerous weapons. And Iran plans to give those weapons, nuclear weapons, to its terrorist proxies. That would make the nightmare of nuclear terrorism all too real. The increasing range of Iran's ballistic missiles would bring that nuclear nightmare to the cities of Europe and eventually to America. Remember, Iran calls Israel the small Satan. It calls America the great Satan. And this is why for decades, it's led millions in the chants of death to Israel and death to America. Today, Israel is responding to those genocidal calls with action and with a call of our own. Long live Israel and long live America. Our action will help make the world a much safer place. I want to thank President Trump for his leadership in confronting Iran's nuclear weapons program. He has made clear time and again that Iran cannot have a nuclear enrichment program. Today, it is clear that Iran is just buying for time. It refuses to agree to this basic requirement of peaceful nations. That is why we have no choice but to act, and act now. The hardest decision any leader has to make is to thwart a danger before it is fully materialized. Nearly a century ago, facing the Nazis, a generation of leaders failed to act in time. They were paralyzed by the horrors of World War I. They were determined to avoid war at all costs, and they got the worst war ever. They adopted a policy of appeasement. They closed their eyes and ears to all the warning signs. That failure to act resulted in World War II, the deadliest war in history. It claimed the lives of 60 million, including 6 million Jews, a third of my people. After that war, the Jewish people and the Jewish state vowed never again. Well, never again is now. Today, Israel has shown that we have learned the lessons of history. When enemies vow to destroy you, believe them. When enemies build weapons of mass death, stop them. As the Bible teaches us, when someone comes to kill you, rise and act first. This is exactly what Israel has done today. We have risen like lions to defend ourselves. Over 3,000 years ago, Moses gave the people of Israel a message that has steeled their resolve ever since. Be strong and courageous, he said. Today, our strong and courageous soldiers and people stand together to defend ourselves against those who seek our destruction. And by defending ourselves, we defend many others, and we roll back a murderous tyranny. Generations from now, history will record that our generation stood its ground, acted in time, and secured our common future. May God bless Israel. May God bless the forces of civilization everywhere. Thank you.
All right, that was some of those remarks.
That was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu
He made those remarks
of Israel.
So we are taking a live look right now there in Jerusalem. So we'll continue to keep our eyes there on the region. But we do know, again, today, as Israel is bracing, I should say, for more attacks by Iran, I want to play out a moment that happened there on the ground. Our Fox News correspondent, Trey Yates, he's there in Tel Aviv as he's responding to some of this. Let's go ahead and listen into what he has to say.
Sites in Tel Aviv.
You see, Israel was attacked and invaded
Some receiving medical attention.
by those people in Gaza, Hamas. Now, Israel was defending itself and still has to. Now, you heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu state that Iran calls Israel Little Satan, and they call the United States of America Big Satan. Iran hates the United States with a passion as much as it does the nation of Israel.
Coordinated strike against Iranian nuclear facilities and also targeted the top scientists in Iran and top IRGC officials. Follow me on Instagram for more. Tune in live.
That's all right. Mark Smith, you're all right, brother.
Our thanks to Trey.
If I sound like a leprechaun, I wish I had a pot of gold. You know what I mean, Vern. I've got $15.58 in supers so far. That's greatly appreciated.
Down the very latest. And I now want to bring into the conversation Senior Vice President of the American Foreign Policy Council, Ilan Berman. Ilan, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox.
Pleasure.
All right, let's start off with the very basics. We know that there have been attacks that were first sent by Israel, targeted attacks there on some of the nuclear facilities in Iran. In the aftermath, though, Iran striking back, hitting targets there in Tel Aviv. Can you sort of walk us through what your first response was to seeing this as we're taking a look at some of these attacks that are waged there in the region?
Right. Well,
you see, war is war. Defending yourself means that you defend yourself.
They were extensive, but they were measured in the sense that they targeted only Iranian.
Did that stop Israel from being attacked? No, it did not.
it was very clear that
Iran funded those attacks against Israel.
Trying to
Iran funded Hamas. They fund Hezbollah.
Also to stay within the four corners of the evolving, somewhat stalled now nuclear talks between the United States and Iran. The president had made clear in the past that he wanted to attain some sort of compromise, some sort of meaningful compromise and agreement with Iran. What Israel did, at least initially, was create a framework that didn't.
Yes, sir, Georgia regulator. Iran is known as a terrorist nation.
This morning, which was to
Iran hates Israel and they hate the United States of America even more because the United States stands with Israel.
From what it did last night, very much empowered that statement. Now, things have evolved since then, and we saw additional Israeli military strikes on Iran during the day today, including the killing of Ismail Ghani, the replacement for Qasem Soleimani as the head of the IRGC Quds Force, the paramilitary arm
Lutafi Dumani, hello, welcome on to the live stream.
It has precipitated.
Everyone is playing with fire. You're exactly right.
This ping-ponging back and forth. The ball is now in Israel's
Now that is what I'm trying to warn everyone about, to pay close attention to what is going on in the Middle East.
An escalation on the part of the Israelis.
And so I want to
this could very easily escalate into an international conflict where multiple nations joins Israel or Iran. It could become the start of the Third World War.
No, I think the footage in particular really drives home the point that we're talking about two different and qualitatively different strategies. When Israel attacked Iran, it did so through aerial strikes, planes that traveled over 1,000 miles. It carried out pinpoint strikes, very significant, very damaging strikes, but they were narrowly tailored. In contrast, what Iran has just done in Israel and why we're almost guaranteed to see a further Israeli response has been a much less sophisticated, much more broad brush, much more
Shias
that is targeted Israeli
Opera
and has wounded something like 40 Israelis, some of them critically. So Israel was striking counter force targets, targets that relate to Iran's military enterprise.
Well, I'm here to tell you there is only two genders, male and female, in the beginning.
And Israeli citizens.
In the beginning, the Creator created man. Then he took a rib from within man and created woman. That is why she is called woman, because she came from man. But there is only two genders.
Likely not, but as we're looking ahead,
I wager not.
Let's look ahead as well at just really breaking down the influence and the conversation.
If you believe there is more than two genders, your head is really messed up.
And I think it's necessary to sort of to apply the proper frame.
Male and female created he, them. There can be no procreation between two males or two females. It takes a male and a female to procreate, to create new life.
The reason he made the decision to pull out of the JCPOA.
That should be enough to let anybody know that there is not but two
it wasn't open-ended. It had
genders.
Very short time horizon.
How are you going to produce a third gender?
Within a decade.
Good evening, Tubal Kane. Great to see you, brother. We're sitting here talking about the fact that Israel launched strikes against Iran, destroying a bunch of their nuclear facilities, killing some of the high-ranking Iranian officials within the nuclear program.
has been.
Now, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes against Israel.
Doesn't create these loopholes, doesn't let Iran fall back into this very permissive structure that was created by the Obama administration. And most of all, the most important part is that in its second term, the Obama administration stepped back from its demands that Iran not be allowed to enrich uranium inside the country. And since then, in the years since then, Iran has dramatically expanded its domestic enrichment of uranium, which.
But see, you heard them talking about former President Obama.
That's what.
He backed off on Iran, let Iran have free reign to develop nuclear weapons because former President Barack Hussein Obama hates Israel as much as
not willing to compromise or to roll back its nuclear program.
Iran does.
This is an expected response from Iran. I also want to talk about, because we just brought in so much information about the international element of it all as well. I've been asking some of our guests this question as well. We know that Russia has also had a relationship with Iran and backing them in a sort of their relationship between the two. Can you go into that and how that's also going to affect this conflict going forward?
Sure. Well, and the Russians have really, in recent days, tried to insinuate themselves into these negotiations. Vladimir Putin offered publicly that, we'll play a compromise role. We will, the Iranians can ship the uranium that they enrich out of the country. We'll stockpile it. We'll warehouse it. All of this is I think, a local play on the part of the Russians to try to improve their own negotiations with Washington. Because let's remember, these things are connected. The Russians are fighting in Ukraine. The Iranians are helping the Russians fight in Ukraine by providing them with drone technology and drone blueprints and other battlefield materiel. And so Russia's not a impartial broker here. It's not an honest broker here. It's trying very much to shield the Iranian regime from consequences. That's why you see Vladimir Putin, despite everything that he's done in Ukraine over the last 3 years, come out publicly this afternoon and say that, he condemns the Israeli attacks on Iranian cities. That smacks a little bit of intellectual dishonesty, but it's very much par for the course in terms of the Russian-Iranian relationship.
And so as we're still continuing to see some of that response, I want to put this up on the screen as well from the United Nations. The United Nations did.
Hello, Van Thu. How you doing? Welcome to you.
It just wrapped up about an hour
We're covering
so now, but they said nuclear facilities
the airstrikes Israel launched against Iran. Now Iran has launched retaliatory strikes against Israel.
Regional and international peace and security.
Hello to you, Van. How you doing?
An organization like this just condemning the attacks in general on nuclear facilities.
So I think so. And by the way, the official that made that statement, Rafael Grossi, is the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog. Their writ is global nuclear security. So that statement is very expected. It's sort of nothing new. What is interesting to me is the things that Grossi.
Well, now the Bible says that the river Euphrates will dry up and all nations will come against Israel in the valley of Megiddo,
very clearly is
for the battle of Armageddon.
Legitimate international legal.
That is mainly what all this fighting is against those Middle Eastern countries, is about control of that area.
Catastrophic weapons. And it also has signaled the intent to do so, because it's talked about wiping Israel from.
I don't want to cut you off because we're going to continue our conversation, but this is a live feed that we have there over the region. They're in Israel, and we just saw the camera pan up and see what appeared to be possibly some of these attacks continuing there as well. You were just watching, we were able to capture the moment that it seemed like a missile was intercepted. We do know that Israel has a very strong system there.
Now this is live in Israel.
I'm seeing this live right now over Tel Aviv.
Well, that's right. And actually, the really remarkable thing is that Israeli air defenses are overwhelmingly successful. There's no such thing as 100% interception rate, but the casualties that we saw and the impacts that we saw in the footage that you played, I think needs to be balanced against the fact that Iran has literally fired now hundreds of missiles at Israel, and the vast majority of them have been intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome system and intercepted by Allied defenses en route to the Jewish state. So the Israeli missile defense architecture is robust, but it's not hermetically sealed. There will be projectiles that get through depending on the volume. And that's what makes this conflict potentially so escalatory, because Iran is embarking upon large-scale missile salvos that are directed at Israeli cities. They are likely to hit, or at least some percentage of them are likely to hit. Hopefully a small percentage, but
there was one that got through.
There are things that get through, and depending on how damaging they are when they get through, that will propel and catapult this conflict into a completely different dimension of intensity.
Yeah, that was a moment. It did seem to make it.
Well, I'm not gay and I'm not in Russia, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Moments that we're seeing, again, live happening right now on our screen, and some of these attacks that have been sent from Iran. We have a statement from the IDF. I want to read it out here, saying that the IDF identified that missiles were recently launched from Iran towards the territory of the State of Israel.
IDF stands for the Israeli Defense Forces.
We were just talking about that some of these possibly are able to slip through, but continuing on.
Here it is about the No King protest.
The defense systems are working to intercept the threat. You must enter the protected areas and remain there until further notice. Exiting the protected area will only be possible after receiving explicit instructions. You must continue to act according to the home front command's instructions. Again, this is now, another round being sent. How much longer are we going to see these rounds continuing to be sent from Iran there back to Israel? I was talking to a guest a bit earlier in our conversation, earlier in the show. He was saying that it could be possible that Iran doesn't have the power to keep up with Israel militarily as far as having access to as many ballistic missiles. Do you have any insight into that?
No, I think that's a correct assessment.
Hello, G-Money, Shalom.
The types of salvos, the volume of missiles that are being fired at Israel, this is not a sustainable rate of fire on the part of the Iranians. And there's also another thing that I think needs to be pointed out, certainly for the viewers. The missiles that you see falling in Israel in the footage that we're seeing right now are not necessarily failed interceptions.
Shalom
the
to
Iron
you.
Dome system has a very sophisticated discrimination algorithm.
G-Money.
It does not intercept. It ignores missiles that are projected to fall in unpopulated areas. So things that are falling don't necessarily mean that they're things that are falling on cities. They may be allowed to fall because they're heading towards unpopulated places.
Has this investment for Israel in its defense system proved to be critical? I mean, we've been seeing these strikes, and as you're saying, what has been reported by the Israeli paramedics, that they reported earlier about 34 people had been wounded in the attack. I mean, from what we're seeing, it looks a lot.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming on to the live stream. Please keep aware of what's going on around you.
What we've seen, and certainly what we've seen since October 7th.
Try not to think that it don't affect you, because it could affect you more than you could ever realize. This could end up leading to the Third World War.
Billions of dollars. It has collaborated very closely with the United States to build the world's only real national missile defense system. And part of that is because Israel's a very small country. It's geographically roughly the size of the state of New Jersey. But this missile defense system is very robust. It's multi-tier. It hits missiles at different stages of their flight. And
thank you all for coming on to the live stream.
You can imagine the volume of
take care of yourselves, but please take care of each other.
I can only imagine. So we're continuing to
Eagle
like we've taken a little bit of a lull here.
Oh,
a minute or so, then calm down and pick back up.
Yeah,
I
very,
am
very much, and that's why
EagleNick.
hear a lot of talk about some waves of attacks because the missiles are not launched in staggered fashion. They tend to be launched all at once, which
Peace
means
and bacon grease. You know what I mean, Vern. Y'all have a very blessed day.
There will be a lull. This doesn't mean that there aren't additional missiles coming, but
keep your eyes open and your ears alert.
Of capability. This is not a volume of fire that Iran can keep up indefinitely. And so,
thank you, UZ, for coming on to the live stream. If you're not already, please be sure to subscribe. Check out my content on my YouTube channel. I love you all, and I pray for you all daily.
And they seized that volley. That was one big volley. They had more.
Take care of yourselves, but please take care of each other.
Math attaches here too.
EagleNick.
Now, I think
this.
And we've been talking here with, you're just now joining us.
I am
Senior Vice President of
EagleNick.
the American Foreign Policy Council, Elon Berman.
And I'm out.
Your knowledge here, your wealth of knowledge has been really critical in helping us break down the very latest